Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be sharing my story with you about how I've been able to live free of multiple sclerosis for the past 29 years. My name is Pam Bartha and I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. And I am very honored and humbled and excited to share my story with you because my story is truly a story of hope. Hope for all of you. My story is a story of second chances and of victory. And so it's not just for me, but I'm hoping that as I share some of my story, that it will relate to you and that you will see a brighter future for yourself if you suffer with multiple sclerosis or any type of chronic disease. So I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. I'll do a quick check and say hello to a few people. Hello, Oksana and Janae and Victor, so you guys can hear me. Billy, hello. Yes, thank you for the love already. Please make sure that you share this video with other people that are in your life that are searching for answers. They may be dealing with symptoms, disease symptoms. Maybe they have a diagnosis, but whatever the case is, many of us become hopeless because the more we search for answers and the more different things we try, we find that there is no hope for us. So I really hope that my story inspires you today, that there is hope for you. And yes, you can have your life back too. So thank you for the love, the hearts, the thumbs up. And please, like if I'm saying something that relates to you and it makes sense to you or you've gone through it, please share, like interact with me in the comment section. And even if you're listening to a replay, go ahead and ask questions, etc., because we will be answering your questions. So back in 1988, very long time ago, 29 years ago, I was just a young mother. I was 28 years old. I had a lot of hair, the big hair of the 80s. It was longer than now and really thick and the big bangs. And I had always been a healthy person. I was slim, I was active, I played volleyball in school, I had a horse, we lived on a farm, we did lots of work with my dad. We had first an agricultural farm, then it turned into a horticultural farm where we had trees and sod and landscaping. And so I was an outdoors girl. And I grew up on a farm. And I was the oldest of 6 children. And I got married young when I was, I think, 21 years old to my husband. And we've been married for over 30 years. And we started to raise a family. So I was just really young, 28 years old, starting to raise children. I had one child who was 2 years old. And my second child was just a few months old, about 6 months old, when I started to get really weird symptoms. So one day we were out in a park. And yes, I was a little bit tired. I had 2 children under the age of 2. Sometimes you don't sleep a lot, right, throughout the nights, but nothing that concerned me. I wasn't sick. I didn't see the doctor more regularly, just the normal checkups. And one sunny Sunday afternoon, my husband and I had our 2 kids out at our city park. And I had this black spot in the center of my left vision. And I just kept rubbing it and it wouldn't go away. And I thought, this is really odd. By the second day, my vision had, the black spot had gotten a lot larger. And then by the third day, it was like I had a black patch on my left eye. It was completely blackout. And so that really scared me. I went to see an eye specialist and he said, it's optic neuritis. Because it's such a severe case, I'd kind of like to have you checked out by a specialist to make sure that it's not multiple sclerosis. So I did, or I was referred very quickly to one of the best MS clinics in Canada on the West Coast, big university MS hospital clinic. And there I saw the experts. And because I had never been sick before, I just thought, whatever it is, they're going to fix me. Went into his office and did all his diagnostic testing. And he said, yes, you have multiple sclerosis for sure. And there's not much you can do about it. It makes us disabled quicker for some people and more slowly for others. But I'm telling you as the expert, there's nothing that you can do to change the course of your life. I also should share that, by the time I got in to see him, which was within a few days, I had really bad insomnia. I had terrible headaches, extreme fatigue. I started to get weakness in my legs pretty quickly and tingling. And I was really a mess. I could not take care of my children. I could not take care of myself. Thank goodness my mother stepped in to help. But my husband drove me to that clinic and we went there. And when he told me I had multiple sclerosis, I didn't even really know what multiple sclerosis was. I just knew that it sounded really serious. So he also made a big point, and this I want to share with you because, you know, for a lot of us, things haven't changed much in 29, 30 years. But he made a point to say that people are going to tell you about all kinds of snake oil cures, but as the expert, I'm telling you, there is nothing that you can do to change the course of your life. You will become disabled in time. And I left his office like shocked, devastated. I thought that my life was over. I drove home with my husband. He drove me home through the mountain pass and it poured rain. If any of you know the Northwest, like in Canada, between Vancouver and the inner part of British Columbia, through the mountain pass, it can just be pouring rain. And it poured and poured and I cried all the way home. And all I could think about was what a burden I would be to my husband. He's 28 years old. He's got his whole life ahead of him, and now he's going to have to take care of me. And I had two young, beautiful kids, and how was I going to raise them? Because I didn't even have the energy to take care of them at that time. So I did come home, and my mom stepped in, as I mentioned, and I'm so grateful for all the support that she gave me at that time. But all I really had left was my faith in God. And I felt like, how is this possible? You're healthy all your life, you know, 28 years you're healthy. And then all of a sudden your life is over. Like you've got this death sentence and this mystery is taking over your body. So I just really cried out to God. And, you know, many of us have faiths. And for me, it was all I had left. And I had had enough of a relationship with God, and that I just knew that he loved me, and that I just had this sense in me that something good is going to come out of it. And I begged and I begged and I begged and I begged. I'm the kind of person that begs for a lot of help from God. Just a pointer for all of you. If you have a relationship with God, do that, because I've had so many prayers answered. That's what I could say. Anyhow, shortly after my diagnosis, my mother-in-law finds this book. And she's like, I don't know if it'll help Pam or not, but maybe it will. So she bought it and she gave it to me, and she really didn't know much about it. And this book, this is back in 1988, and the book was called The Yeast Connection by Dr. William Crook. And this was written by a medical doctor who at that time, 30 years ago, I have no idea how he learned this or if he learned it from other doctors, but he came to the conclusion that when we have chronic disease in our body, it's stemming from infections. And if you treat those infections, your disease process will stop and you're going to have a lot of recovery. When I read that, I was like, wow, this is so exciting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop the multiple sclerosis. I don't know if I'll be able to cure myself, but this sounds a lot better than what I was told. So back at that time, after my initial attack, when I lost all vision in my left eye, and I was put on high doses of prednisone to try to, save some of my vision, but now we know that it really does not give you any more repair. It will just speed up whatever recovery you will have. So I read that book and I decided at that point, I'm going to take a different path. I'm going to figure out, I have no idea how, but I'm going to figure out which infections are making me sick and how to treat them. And I just want to share with you that, I do a lot of studying under a lot of professional development. And Brian Clemmer, he is a professional development person. And in some of his education, he talks about how when you have a strong enough why, when it's like, why do you have to succeed, right? It's like, I have to succeed, like for my kids' sake, for myself, for my life. I've got so much to live for. I'm only 28 years old. The how-to shows up. And I had no idea that it would, because this was like an impossibility. Like all the experts tell you that, no, there is no answer, but there are answers for you. I just want you to know that there are answers. Maybe you weren't getting the right advice, like I didn't get the right advice, but there are answers. And it is such an exciting time for people that suffer with chronic disease. I'll be talking more about that later. So I decided to search the world for safe, effective ways to treat infections, and which infections there were. I had never had a yeast infection, a vaginal yeast infection, so I had never heard of yeast. I didn't know what Candida was. But I started to read some books, and I'm going to share with you some of the books I read, because these are like, I've had them for 30 years in my house. I've been packing them around like a pack rat. So the first one, I lost the original copy of the Yeast Connection, but I still have the Yeast Connection cookbook. And so there was a Yeast Connection book. I would not recommend buying these books because they're quite outdated, but it's interesting to read about how this doctor knew that chronic disease, multiple sclerosis, was caused by infection. You can probably go to your library and find it there, get it for free. Then I found what I did was, there were health food stores, tiny little health food stores back in the 80s. There was no wellness revolution. So we had this tiny little health food store downtown in our hometown, where kind of more like the hippie people would go. And, you know, I wasn't really into that kind of stuff. I didn't even know there was integrative health. But I would go there, and I found that there was this magazine called the Alive magazine. And every week or every month, there was a new edition put out. In the back of the Alive magazine, they were always doing a book review. That's how I found these books. So I would always grab the magazine and I'd flip to the back, and I'm like, okay, which book are they reviewing? Because I didn't have the internet back then. And this is how I learned about the other doctors too. So I learned about Dr. Luc DeShepper, who is another, it's like, look at how old and beat up these books are, right? So Dr. Luc DeShepper, his book called Candida. Let me see, everything is backwards on the computer. There we go. So the symptoms, so that is a classic, another gentleman, doctor, who really understood how big fungus was in chronic disease. So that was a helpful book. And then I read another book by our Canadian doctor, Dr. Rona. So this is Dr. Rona's book, The Complete Candida. So these are old books that I have, and I still have them because they're classics. And the problem is, a lot of them talked more about Candida. And then one last one I want to share is The Missing Diagnosis, William Orion Truss. So these are the original books that I had. And then, of course, I found people like Judy Graham. Some of you may have known, you know, if you guys have some of these books or if you've read them, make sure to let me know. Okay, so we go here. Judy Graham, also another great book. She talked more about anti-inflammatory oils and a diet. So there was a lot of these books that were talking about diets. And so there were many other books that I read. Another great one is Food and the Gut Reaction. Food and the Gut Reaction is another great one. And of course, the classic, the Roy Swank low-fat diet, right? Look at how ripped up it is. So I tried the low-fat diet and it did nothing for me. And also, like when you're learning about the infections, you see that the infections actually prefer carbohydrates and not fats for the majority of the infections that are making us sick. So that's why we have found that the low-fat diet is really not helpful, but the low-carb diet is very, very helpful, going low-carb. So those are just some of the books. And I tell you, I have bookshelves of books and books that I read. Never mind all of the, like I went back and got a science degree. I started treating Candida, started doing parasite cleanses, started going to all kinds of integrative doctors, safe things like acupuncture, working iridology, and all kinds of herbal cleanses and tons of supplements. Luckily, there was no stem cell therapy or CCSVI at that time, because I would have spent a much greater fortune than I did. But all in all, you know, there's things that helped and things that didn't help. And I can honestly say that the more I focused on infection, both parasitic infections and fungal infections, and because I caught it early enough, I was able to completely arrest the disease and stay in remission for 29 years. So did I just go back to my old way of life? No, I live everything that I teach. I still eat a low-carb eating plan. It is not just to keep the infections down and keep the good microbes up, but it's also anti-aging. So the key is that everything that I've learned over the past 29 years is through the 4 pillars of wellness, which I wrote the book, Become a Wellness Champion. You can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So the exciting thing is that I've been able to keep the multiple sclerosis in remission, MS-free for 29 years. I was able to have another child, which they really don't recommend. And he is 23 years old now, which is so neat. And the neat thing is that, you know, me being a sick mom, having him 8 years later, because I waited, right? I was working on my health and treating these infections and always like, can I handle another child? Yes, no, every day it was on my mind. We decided to have another child, and he's 23. He's over 6 feet tall, super healthy. He's never needed antibiotics. So that's amazing. I also went back to university, became a high school math and science teacher. I got a science degree, and my heart, I wanted to help people. I wanted to coach, but I thought I would go into med school. But after the science degree with 3 kids, I thought that's enough torture for my family. Thank you guys for all your love. And so I became a high school teacher. And while I was teaching and being a mom, at nights and on weekends, I would coach people. It was my heart and it was my passion. And little did I know that my whole life was kind of all coming into place to be in this position where I'm at right now, which is an incredibly humbling experience to coach hundreds of people all over the world. So I have stepped away from my teaching contracts and stepped away from the school district. I'm so grateful for that opportunity to touch the lives of so many kids. But you know, this is a little different than teaching math. Helping people to take back their life is incredibly rewarding. So in the past, I would say 7, 8 years, I've created this program. It's the Live Disease-Free Academy, and many, many wellness champions, and some of you might be on this call right now, have taken it. And so the neat thing is that what we've learned, like back in the day, we knew Candida was a problem, we knew infections were a problem, yes, we knew parasites, but we have such a greater understanding right now of which types of infections are causing the neurological symptoms associated with MS and other chronic diseases too. So I want to share some big nuggets with you, all right? And if you guys have questions, thank you for the millions of hearts. I love that. All right, so what I'd like to share with you are some of the golden nuggets that I really live by and I really believe, right? Number 1, our body is a miracle. It is genetically programmed. It knows how to operate. All we have to do is figure out what is interfering with our body's ability to run optimally and address it. So what I found is that correcting nutritional deficiencies, treating these chronic infections in the body, and reducing toxins, those are really the biggest ones. Most of the toxins are coming from these infections. Yes, there are some toxins coming from our environment, which weakens us, but when we're dealing with chronic disease, most of the inflammation and toxicity is coming from these infections. So really, to treat the body with respect, to really support it and take away what's interfering with it. And then your body just goes back to running the way that it should. And the more we support it, we start to feel younger and younger, and we feel better than we have in years. And a lot of people share with me, like, I didn't realize how bad I felt. I didn't realize how old I felt. And then when you start correcting all these things, you start to feel a lot younger. And you start to feel hopeful, and you start to feel happy, and you start to feel like your old self, and you start to engage with relationships and in life. And I'm going to share some successes that just came in yesterday from the students that we're working with right now. So the golden nuggets is support your body. Don't shut it down with strong immunosuppressive drugs. I'm not telling you to stop any medication. You have to work with your doctor. You have to work with a coach. You have to work in a safe manner. But in the long term, start to create health. Shift your focus away from sickness management and shift your focus to creating health. That's what the wellness champions do. That's what I've done. I just want to thank you for engaging. I just want to thank you so much for all your love. It means a lot to me, because although it's handy speaking to you from my home, it is not as exciting as seeing your beautiful faces. So thank you for all the love. So number 1, start to think about, I'm going to start creating health, and I'm not going to manage sickness anymore. I'm going to shift away from it. Number 2, to support the body naturally so that it can do what it is designed to do. And then number 3 is to make sure that you are, I just want to make sure I cover all of them here, to make sure that you are understanding that sickness is not a mystery. All right. So when I share, maybe you haven't watched my masterclass training yet. It's how to recover from multiple sclerosis naturally. If you haven't watched it, you'll see a link in this feed. And when you go through that masterclass training, a lot of people share with me, this makes sense. This is totally consistent with how I've been feeling. I've had stomach issues for many years. I've had these symptoms. I've been on antibiotics, etc. I want to backtrack for a minute just to say something, is that, you know, the more we're learning about the infections that are causing MS and where there's high amounts of MS, etc., we know that in Canada it's the highest rate of multiple sclerosis. And we know that on farms or in the rural areas, many times higher incidence of MS versus the cities. And when I'll be sharing with you in a minute the types of infections, like we've learned about the parasites, and some of these parasites, they're really common in animals. So the crazy thing is when I look back on my life, growing up on the farm, like Little House in the Prairie, way back in southern Alberta, some of you might know of Vauxhall, like I'm talking the sticks. And we had pigs, we had chickens, and we had turkeys, and we had cats and dogs. And eventually, as I got into my teens, we had I had my own horse, and my sister had a horse. We were around animals all the time. And back in the day, our parents or the doctors would deworm all of us kids, all 6 of us. But I was on a lot of antibiotics too. So number 1, I was exposed to a lot of parasites being on a farm. Number 2, I was on a lot of antibiotics. I was always that skinny kid when I was little. Like I was always very slim. I could eat tons of ice cream. My mom would try to fatten me up and she couldn't fatten me up. I'm sure I had a lot of parasites as a young child. And so then knowing that I was on antibiotics like throughout my life, like for as a young child, for example, for strep throat, tonsillitis, bronchitis, but then especially for acne. And I think that was really the big turning point for me. And I see with a lot of students going on a broad spectrum antibiotic for months, it really wipes out your good microbes. And then the bad microbes really start to get out of balance. And then, of course, I had no idea that I was so out of balance. And I ate the typical North American diet where we had white bread back in the day, ice cream, you know, lots of sugar, etc. And, you know, we did have vegetables too, but too many processed carbs. And I can see exactly how I got to the point of having MS. And that's the exciting thing. In the academy, when I work with students, like in lesson 2, we look at our health history, we look at the health histories of our parents, and also the circumstances in our life and how they all came together to bring us to this place. The value of learning that is because if you go, oh my goodness, I so see it, you can make sure you never let that happen again. So I just wanted to share that with you. So this whole thing about sickness, chronic disease, it is not a mystery. It boils down to those 3 biggest causes. And yes, we have to use a holistic approach to recover, but the key is that we have to treat the cause, right? So that's the next principle I wanted to share with you, that if you really want to live your very best life and you're dealing with disease symptoms, there is no eating plan that's going to save you. There is no exercise that's going to save you. You have to treat the infections. You have to treat them. Sometimes herbs are not enough. That's what we're seeing with some of these parasites. You have to physically kill them. Can we completely sterilize our body? No, but we can decrease them far enough that we have no more symptoms. And then, so to have your best life, you have to treat symptoms. And then also another really important thing is that this is something new, especially for my generation. I'm 57 years old. And so for me, it was always like, you know, the doctor is the expert. The doctor is the one that knows all about health. And I just live my life and I just go to him. And if I ever need, he's going to fix me. Well, that didn't work out so well for me once I realized I had multiple sclerosis. So this whole new shift going away from chronic disease and disease maintenance to creating health is the understanding that we have to become the director of our health. We really have to learn what it truly takes to be well, the principles that we need to apply in our life daily so that we can live our best life, so that we can live a long life, so that we can protect the health of our children and our spouses and our families and our loved ones, right? And for generations, our grandchildren now for me. So that's the key, is that we really have to become the director of our health. Many of us know we've gotten sick, and then we put we put all of our faith in one healthcare provider, and we may spend a ton of money, thousands of dollars, and we're still sick. So we come to realize in time that we cannot put our health solely in the hands of any one expert. We have to understand what we need, and then we work together as a team, and we direct in a respectful manner. That way you actually reach your health goals. Otherwise, most people don't. So just want to go to your questions right now. So I just want to share with you that because of what I learned, by the grace of God, and of course I had to do a lot of hard work myself. I have lived MS-free for 29 years. I had another child, and he was on my mind for 8 years. I just, as a mom, you just know when you're not done having a family. And I was able to go back to university and get a science degree, and I was a high school teacher for 14 years. And now I have been able to raise my family, be a grandmother, and be active with my grandchildren and my kids, and just participate in every part of life. We love the outdoors. And so I'm so incredibly grateful. I've been to, 2 of my children are married, so I've danced all night at the wedding. And I am so incredibly grateful. And I am so passionate about helping other people have those opportunities also. And that's why I created the Live Disease Free Academy. And it's an opportunity for you to take a course online with an amazing group of super cool wellness champion heroes from all over the world, like 15 different countries, where we are building a plan, recovering, and then touching the lives of people in our life. All right, so I'm just gonna go to your questions, see if you guys have any comments. All right, so we have 64 comments. Okay, so I'll head down to the bottom here. I promise I won't keep you here that long, but I'll just try to head to the bottom. So thank you so much. So if you want to watch my masterclass training, there is a link in the feed in the comment section here. It'll probably be up by the video once we're done also. Hi, Crystal. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Damon. And hi, Janae. Mariana, hello. And Penny and Crystal. And Allison. Hi, Allison. And Crystal, you can too. Absolutely, you can. And Janae, you can also. Yeah, you were on a lot of antibiotics, Janae. That is very common with the students that I work with, is that they were on multiple medications, especially antibiotics, especially before the age of 10 for a lot of them. Sometimes it's later, sometimes it was surgeries, possibly from, whether it's an accident or from sports injuries. So Michelle, you have a constant hangover feeling, which you've been describing as brain fog. And I talk about that on my masterclass training. If you haven't watched it yet, make sure that you do. And we know that, for example, if you talk about one of the infections, Candida, it can produce over 70 poisons, and one of them is acetaldehyde. I used to tell my kids when I was still sick that sometimes in the morning I would feel like I was hungover or hit by a truck. I used to always say, oh, I feel like I was hit by a truck. And that is usually acetaldehyde, and that's the hangover chemical. So that is one of the chemicals that's produced. It's a strong neurotoxin. Your liver has to break it down, and those microbes produce all kinds of other chemicals like formaldehyde and tons of alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. So this is exactly why you're feeling the brain fog, and you don't have to have the brain fog if you treat the infections. We've had so many students that had severe cognitive impairment, whether it's memory issues and just cognitively not being able to process things. But treating the infections, the brain has this amazing ability to heal itself. So there is so much hope for you, Michelle. Thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you all for your kind words. Hello, Karma. Yeah, Little House on the Prairie. It was like we were out in the boonies. You love Idaho. Hi, Janae. And horrible stomach issues. Surishi, hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. If I didn't, I'm sorry. Yes, there is a huge amount of infection in your gut, and that's why you have the stomach issues, and you have to treat them. The problem is that we become out of balance with the microbes. Like when we take antibiotics and then we're eating the wrong foods and we maybe have high stress and we don't sleep enough, there's lots of environmental things that will make these infections a lot stronger inside of our intestines. But over time, these infections start to break through the intestinal lining, and then they move out into our blood, and then they move into different parts of the body. They can move into our central nervous system. They move into for women, into our breasts and into our nose, throat, ears. We can get the ringing, we can get the sinus issues, right? We get the lumpy breasts and, eventually cysts, etc. In the female reproductive, male reproductive, fingernails, toenails become infected. So we get really, truly what I share on my masterclass training, that's why you have to watch it, is you start to understand that when you have chronic disease, ALS, Parkinson's, MS, etc., it's not just one bug that's bugging you, that's making you sick. It's a multitude of several parasites, several fungi, several bacteria. And I've created a resource for you. Maybe Danielle can stick it in the feed also. And it is evidence that multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease. So if your doctor says there's no evidence that this MS is caused by infection, there's many. This is just a small sample of the studies. So go ahead and read through that, share it with your practitioners. And I'm going to be sharing, I'll go through a few more comments here, and I just want to share some exciting updates from students that are in the recovery process right now. So, Surishi, you do not have to suffer with those terrible symptoms, but you have to treat the cause, which is infection. Hi, Crystal and Allie. Thank you for all the love. And Crystal, yes, I have if you haven't met me before, I have so many videos that will give you help as far as things you can do to change your life. When you get to the place where you want to treat infections, you are going to need guidance. So you can either get help from me. It's really hard to find integrative doctors that understand this well enough. I promise you, we are working really hard. We've got a doctor's area. We are starting to share and collaborate. And I talked to a lab, and we may have possible tests by summer to test for one of the parasites, which are little nematodes that are really causing a lot of the MS symptoms. So we're working really hard. But I can't give medical advice over any type of platform because I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want people to go, oh, Pam said this and this drug are good. I bought it online and I took it and I got so sick. You got to work with somebody. You have to work with somebody to stay safe. So make sure you watch my masterclass training and make sure you watch my videos. So many people that I talk to, they're like, Pam, I know you so well. I've watched all your videos. But if you're at that place where you're like, I have been on this journey for a long time. I have tried so many things. I have read books. I've watched videos. I've got a cupboard full of supplements. I've done CCSVI. I've done stem cell. I need a plan. I need a plan to treat these infections. I've never really targeted infections. I need a plan to treat infections. Join us in the Live Disease Free Academy, or listen to my free training. And if it resonates with you and you're like, yes, I want the plan, if you're ready, you get to chat with me and you can get started this week. This week you can start and you can join all these beautiful wellness champions. And just some wellness champions that started this week: Rashay, Susan, Amy, Liz, Joni, and Carol. Those are just some of our newest wellness champions. Just wanted to give a shout out. Just over the last few days, they've joined us, and how exciting that they are going to be turning their life around, recovering from chronic disease, and just living their best life. So I just wanted to share a few successes with you. We had a group call in the academy with this group of, I call them the Trailblazers. They really are the Trailblazers because they are blazing a path for you, for any of you that have not recovered yet. So they are the ones that are using these drugs and, okay, this works. Yes, we got to go longer. Okay, oh my gosh. And I just want to share with you what we're seeing. So we used to use herbs a lot. The reason being, like, to treat parasites. Let me backtrack. We've known for 30 years that fungus is a big part of chronic disease. No question about it. Has to be treated. It's difficult to treat it if you've had it for a long time. Number two, over the past 10 years, we've known that the vector-borne infections that travel together that cause Lyme disease, they are also usually involved in neurological diseases, when we have neurological symptoms. We knew parasites were a problem, but how could we tell how big of a problem they were when there are no really good tests for parasites? Our medical community is not trained in treating parasites. Our pharmacies really don't carry any antiparasitic drugs other than something to treat basic pinworms. So we had no idea, but this last year, my goodness, did we ever learn a lot. Through the work of Dr. Alan McDonald, if you have not watched his lecture and you have MS, you better watch his lecture. He was talking about these little nematodes, these little parasitic worms in the spinal fluid and brain, central nervous system of people that have MS. So then what we did is like, okay, well, if that is the case and animals that have these infections, they have symptoms identical to multiple sclerosis. They have paralysis, they have drop foot, they have spasticity, they have balance issues, they go blind, terrible fatigue, numbness. It's like freaky how consistent the symptoms are in domestic animals with the symptoms that are found in multiple sclerosis. So then we're like, okay, so which are the drugs? Of course, we like to use herbs, so we try using herbs, but it's not touching it. And so we were looking at which drugs are helping those animals to recover. And so we are now combining them, very well tolerated, better than the herbs. A lot of people that are super sensitive, having a lot of these infections, they don't tolerate herbs very well, like the killing of parasites. And so we're seeing that, you know, within a week to 2 weeks, there can be big shifts in things like balance, in things like less tremors, and the spasms can be greatly reducing or going totally away. So I'm just going to give you 5 students, there were more, that gave really amazing updates, but I don't want to take up too much of your time because I want to answer some more of your questions. So one student shared on the call yesterday, she said, yesterday I had a wonderful day. I even told my boyfriend that I felt like me. No symptoms practically, which was wonderful. Another student shared, I was able to use my walker today, the first time out of the wheelchair in 2 years. I'm so happy. So remember that he's just starting to treat parasites, but within, like, I would say maximum a week to 2 weeks at the max, having that shift. Is he running yet? No, he's going to have to treat them more, but I can never promise people can come on out of a wheelchair, but how exciting for him. Student number 3, this is a student who she shared, following the initial eating plan and supporting the body, so all the things we do in the program. The second week I was on the eating plan, I had removed all the sugar, I felt amazing, I could get out of bed with no aches, no pains, no numbness, no mental fog. It was wonderful. I was able to come off of my reflux medication and my blood thinners, working with her doctor, of course, and lowering her doses of her other drugs. My GP has been so proud of me, and my blood work is fantastic. Now she's treating the parasites more aggressively. So what we do in the program is, number 1, we stop feeding the infections. Then number 2, we support the body just as this student did. So she's had all these improvements. And then number 3 is we look at your health history so that you understand why you got sick. We look at the symptoms so you understand where you're going to start treating. And then we connect you with healthcare providers that can write prescriptions, and also pharmacies, because most of the pharmacies don't have these drugs yet, which is crazy. Some of them do. The ones that are working with the hero doctors, they do, but a lot of the pharmacies don't carry the antiparasitic drugs because, hey, we're in North America. We don't have parasites in North America. Yeah, that is not true at all. So the key is that many of us have all these parasites in us. And I can tell you, if you haven't seen my work yet, I have a video called MS and Parasitic Worms, and you can see some of the worms that the students are passing. And what we're seeing is that for the most part, people that have MS and neurological diseases are infested with worms. And I'm telling you the truth, infested. We're seeing tiny worms, big worms, worms that are over 2 feet long. I have tons and tons of pictures of them. And Are the really big worms causing their MS symptoms? The neurological symptoms associated with MS? No, but it's making them feel terrible. It's creating a toxic environment in their digestive tract. They have to go. They keep reinfecting us with different types of infections also as they deposit their waste in us. So we are treating the big worms. We're treating the tiny little parasites in our digestive tract, but also in our blood. We're treating those little nematodes that Dr. Alan McDonald found, and I'm sure that that's a big part of it, because as soon as we combine these drugs, we're seeing these shifts. So that one gentleman who was able to use his walker for the first time in 2 years, he's on those 2 drugs. And then another student who is using those 2 medications, she shared a couple of weeks ago, she shared when she started putting those 2 anti-parasitic drugs together, she shared that her doctor this is a neurologist, she said, he said that she had 1,000% improvement in her. And he asked her, why are you using the walker? And she said, well, I'm kind of using it as a crutch. So after the appointment, she went for lunch with her mother without the walker. And just got another update from her yesterday, and she said, my legs are even stronger than last week, no longer have any bladder issues. Today I played with my son, braided my daughter's hair. How fun is that? And then the last student I just wanted to share with you is somebody who doesn't have multiple sclerosis. So we have lots of students, not lots, some. I do attract a lot of people that have MS, but this works for anyone. So this student has Lyme disease. And let me tell you, she has been passing really big worms for weeks, all right, and feeling better and better and better. So she, first of all, when she found out she had Lyme disease, she was working with a Lyme literate doctor, and they're putting her on antibiotics and trying to kill the Lyme. You can't clear the Lyme if you have a lot of parasites and fungus. So we shifted it and like treat the parasites, treat the fungus, and just as Dr. Klinghardt would share, is that most of his patients that believe that they're suffering with Lyme disease, it's really parasites. And if he treats the parasites really well, they have no more Lyme disease. So for this student, she shared, I've had so many successes and improvements so far since I started this program. I'm feeling really great and looking forward to even better. Some of her successes this far, my brain fog is almost gone. I'm thinking more clearly, better comprehension. I feel smarter. Focus and memory has greatly improved, less OCD. I'm more relaxed, inner tension is gone. I'm more engaged in relationships. Strange, but I feel like I have more time in the day. We do when we feel good. We get more done, right? I have less bladder issues, and I'm able to do more of a rigorous exercise, and I am much more motivated. My dry eye situation has greatly improved. My mood is better, I'm happier, I'm more content, and my energy is better. That is just what she's done. And this is by her becoming the director of her health. And the nice thing is that when you recover, then you know how to manage this for the rest of your life. You don't have to relearn it. You save thousands of dollars because there's so many things you don't need to do. And you actually can daily, and that's how I've lived MS-free for 29 years. It's not that I cured myself 29 years ago and I have beer and pizza every day. It is that I follow these strategies that I teach. And I've learned a long time ago how to become the director of my health, how to manage these microbes in our body. And that's really the biggest missing piece of the puzzle. Tons of diets out there. There is no one diet that will treat these infections. You have to treat them. And then once you treat them, once a year, you're going to do a parasite cleanse. And once a year, you're going to do an antifungal cleanse. And you will know if you're using one that's effective or not. A lot of times we go to the health food store and we get these kits and we take them and we're like, I don't really know if I noticed a difference. Usually it's not touching the problem. So if you truly, like Dr. Klinger said, the more you deworm, the longer you will live. It's really that big of a deal. So my eyes have been so wide open to how big of an issue parasites are with multiple sclerosis. Yes, we still have to treat the fungus. It's super important, and it is challenging treating it too, but you'll never clear fungus and you'll never clear Lyme disease if you don't clear the parasites. They're big, they're small. And then even little things like Babesia is a parasite that gets inside your red blood cells. So it's not just worms, but the worms are something that's really been new. And it is so exciting. Does it hurt when you pass the worms? No, it's exciting. Like my students they're catching with a plastic fork, they're dead, and taking a picture. And that is how we know all of this. Otherwise, you would never know. And we're using enemas. So we're using special enemas that's pulling them out from the large intestine. Otherwise, we would never know all of this. So super exciting. All right, so I'm just gonna go back to your comments. So Janae, you used a lot of antibiotics when you were growing up. Yes, and that's a very big factor of why you're sick today. And okay, I have to go back up here. It's not moving very well. Okay, let's just see. So Janae, you have AFO. I'm not sure what that means. I'm sorry, but I don't know what that means. How do you start working in the program? Erica's wondering. So watch my masterclass training. And then if you watch it and you understand, you relate to it. It's like, this makes sense. I want the plan. I want to be a wellness champion. I share tons of successes. I share why you're sick. I share research. I share the steps we do to recover. If it makes sense to you, you can book a time with me, but you have to, this is only for people that want to join the Academy, right? That are just like, I just want to ask you some questions about the Academy. I want to make sure it's a right fit for me. And so then you can chat with me, and we will send you out some pre-work before, like we'll let you book a time. This is only for people that want to join the Academy. Otherwise, I help you in many other ways. I've got tons of videos, the book, but this is for people that are ready to go to work. So we'll send out some pre-work, and you can listen to the coach-a-thon. And when you listen to the coach-a-thon, it goes into more detail about the steps and the length and the price. And then join me, and we'll chat together, and I'll get to know you and really get a background of what you've done, and just introduce myself to you. And I'm so excited to support you if you're ready, Erica. So Janae and Elvia, hello. Have you had any experience with walk aid to help with walking? You need to lift your foot. So that is called drop foot. All right. And so what happens is that sometimes it's partially because of the spasticity, like our legs become so rigidly cramped, and also muscle atrophy. And we end up with our foot kind of dropping down more. And so then we can stub it. And yes, we have had people that have recovered their drop foot. I can't promise full recovery, but the key is that it's so exciting. When you treat the infections, you support your body, and you see how much recovery you can have. You will stop the progression. You will have a lot of recovery, and you could possibly have drop foot resolved too. Otherwise, there is a really great gym. It's called the MS Gym. And I know that he has exercises to help build your muscles up. But the problem is, and this, I want to tell you this, is that I talk to people every day. I talk to people that were soccer players, professional dancers, bikers, like, I don't mean motorbike, but like racing with bikes. Lots of really runners, like lots of athletes. And what they share with me is that they were so active, and that these infections have slowly taken away their muscle strength. So the problem is when you have these infections so strong in your body, you can do all the physio you want, you can do all the exercises you want, and you're going to have very limited benefits until you treat the infections. And if you treat the infections, that's where there's a big burden taken off of your body, and that's where you can start to take back your mobility in a true sense. Hi, Stephanie. Question: what are the drugs I have my physician who is now... Okay, so first of all, Stephanie, unfortunately, your doctor is not going to prescribe them. That's the problem my students are having, because doctors follow standard of care. They have to, for liability reasons, right? So if you go to him and you say, I've got parasites, he'll say, okay, good, let's do a stool test. We'll do a, whether it's just through your GP, that would just be a stool test, or sometimes people do a comprehensive stool analysis, which I don't really recommend, which is $500 through your integrative doctor. Either way, the infections that are causing your neurological symptoms are not going to show up. They're not looking for it yet. So you'll get the test result back and he'll say, okay, you don't have parasites. And then you'll say, well, I do have parasites. Look at this research. And he'll say, well, I can't just prescribe these drugs to you. And he's not comfortable with them because he hasn't been deworming people. So he's not going to prescribe. So that's problem number one. And problem number two is, because I'm not a medically trained doctor, I cannot name names of drugs online. I want you guys to be able to find me. So everything that I share with you is for educational purposes, so I have to keep it more general. But if you want to work with me, and in time, there will be more doctors that will treat these infections with pharmaceuticals. I have created doctors area. We are sharing it with doctors that are they're hero doctors, they're integrative, they understand infection. They just don't know about these worms in MS. This is quite new, very, very new. But my goodness, is it a game changer. Will things change? Maybe in the future I can say something, but at this point I can't jeopardize, people can't find me then. So I have to play by the rules, all right? All right, so, and also the whole problem is even if you find the names of certain drugs, number one, I can tell you there is no perfect drug that's going to cure you. Thanks for all the love. There is no drug that's just going to clean this mess up. We have to use an integrative approach. So in the academy, you have to stop feeding the infection so much. You have to support your body, right? If there's a bunch of mold in your home, you can take the drugs, you're not going to get better. You need somebody to help troubleshoot. That's what I do with people, is that, you know, if there's something in their environment that's holding them back, that's where I have to go to work to help troubleshoot, to figure out what needs to be changed. And then we layer things. If you can't just, it's not just popping a pill and you recover from MS. We are using pharmaceuticals. We are combining that with herbs. We are also using oxygen therapy in combination. But it's the combination of things that is really speeding up the recovery. And I am super excited about it. And it's going to be a wild year, that's for sure. And Janae, you can't wait to get back to fishing. Yes, well, you need to treat the infections. All right, looking here. You have muscle weakness too? Yes, that is part, these infections cause muscle weakness. And hi, Ali, and hi, okay, Ken and Christy. Hi, Christy, Janae, Kim. You're so very welcome. Quiana, you heard me talking about 2 tablespoons of coconut oil a day to kill parasites in the gut. No, I know that coconut oil has some antifungal properties. So it's kind of like one of the foods. There's several different foods that are a little bit antifungal, but is it going to kill the fungus in you? It's not enough. We have to use, like, even the herbs are not enough. We have to use pharmaceuticals to treat them at this point. Maybe someday in the future, we will find stronger blends of herbs that are strong enough to kill these infections, not just in our gut, but in our blood and in our spinal fluid especially, and in our brain. But at this point, they're not effective enough. Trust me, we've tried. And we're layering it with other things too. You're so very welcome. Okay, I think that is it. Just quickly, lots of thank yous. You're so welcome. And if you are a grad from the academy, maybe a year or two ago, make sure to join me on Monday. I have a special call for you. I've got a whole bunch of updates about these antiparasitic drugs because I've worked with you and you know, so some of us, you know, we've recovered, but we've never really treated the parasites well enough, like myself. I never could treat these worms because how do you do that? You go to your doctor and they're like, no, you don't have worms. So as I've been working with the students, I have been deworming myself and passing lots of worms. So really big eye opener, and you just feel better and better and better. It's a really, like Dr. Klinghardt said, it's a really important part of living a long life. So with that, if you are at the place where you want to have a step-by-step plan to treat these infections, to get on with your life, to make this year your very best life, then make sure to watch my masterclass training. And the link is in the feed, and it should be up by the video after also. And watch it, and it will give you a lot of hope. You can be like me. You can be MS free. You can stop the disease, just like a lot of other wellness champions. But You have to do the right things. And I share that in my masterclass training. And then if you want to work with me, if you want to plan, if you want to join us in the academy, we're just starting a new class right now. And I just shared a bunch of new students that are just joining the Wellness Champions. So we would love for you to start. You can start this week. You can start changing your life this week. All right, with that, I'm going to let you guys go, and I will talk to you next week. I'm going to introduce you to some of the Wellness Champions. So take care and bye-bye for now.